Cool. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming and being here today. It's really quite special to see so many people that cared about Dad here. He did say on his near enough on his deathbed that I'm sorry, there'll be quite a few people that turn up. So it's good to see that did come to fruition. But ultimately, we're gathered here in the home that Dad treasured to celebrate his life. This is a special place for Dad, having nearly bankrupt himself and Mum to buy a very run-down farm over 30 years ago. They have slowly transformed this place into what you see today. Along the way, they've also raised 2 generations of Heathmans, me and my brother Tom, and my girls as well here. So it's a pretty special place for all of us. And while there's grief today, it is about celebrating the life of Dad, or John, or JJ, or whatever you fancied calling him. However, there will be emotions, be it tears, laughter, quiet reflection, all are welcome, but ultimately it's a celebration of his life. So enjoy yourselves most of all, and sort of take the opportunity to see and catch up with people. And if you can squeeze in a bit of cutting dry humour in honour of Dad, that would be all the better. Yeah, more inappropriate the better probably. Ultimately, we lay him to rest yesterday. There's no coffin here. We had a modest family burial at the Methodist Cemetery in Ilsington. Somewhat poetically, he is now buried under 400 yards from where he came into the world, having been born at Luthorn Cross, just up the road from there. He's also surrounded by many that he cared about, family members and friends, including his parents and many people he was very fond of growing up, which brings comfort to us really, that he is very much where he wanted to be. And if you'd like to pay a personal tribute to him, the cemetery is beautiful. It's got welcoming benches and stunning views out over the coast, so please give them a visit. Just finally, before I hand over to Tom, one of the things that's been sort of truly inspiring in the passing has been the outpouring of affection from his friends, be it from football, the golf course, or elsewhere. People genuinely loved spending time with him, and I can't wait to hear more of the tributes and stories today. So I'm going to pass over to Tom now to talk through Dad's memories, pulling a lot of stories from throughout his 7 decades of life on Earth into hopefully a lovely eulogy. I haven't heard yet.
We'll see, won't we?
Yeah. After that, we're going to hear from some of Dad's closest friends, both Tommy and Nige, about his antics and contributions on the football pitch and golf course, the 2 places that he was definitely at his happiest. So with that, I'll follow us over to you, Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Al. So for those that I haven't met, many of you I have. I'm Tom, so I'm John's youngest son. And just to reiterate what Ollie said, we wanted to start out by just saying how grateful we are for all the support, for the family and all of you coming here today. Like Ollie said, it's been overwhelming. If you go inside, there's cards in there that you can read, and there's long letters and people sharing a lot of love and affection for Dad. And Mum's also been super grateful for the outpouring of the community to help her out as well. It means the world to us and the family. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about Dad's life, hopefully some funny stories. It's obviously completely fine to laugh or to cry or to do both at the same time. That's completely fine. Dad, of course, would have wanted everyone laughing here today, so that's the goal for what we want to do. So with that, what I'll do is just give an overview of a bit about Dad's life. Stories from many of you have contributed here today. Some memories from myself and Ollie growing up. I hope you will learn something new about Dad today, and hopefully you'll also hear some stories about things you already knew, or maybe you were there as well. So with that, I'll give the overview of Dad's life. So As Ollie said, Dad was born on the 5th of the 5th, 1955. It's one of the best birthdays there is. And he was born at Luthon Cottage, so just down in Ilsington. And unironically, most of the people here today came from sports. So Dad played cricket, he played football, he played golf. And so Dad's introduction to sport came at a very young age. Actually, when he was 2 days old, he was introduced by his dad to a room full of his dad's mates to watch the FA Cup final at 2 days old. So it was Newcastle United versus Manchester City. Who won? Newcastle United, obviously. And that was the 1955 FA Cup final. Sorry, I wasn't planning for a unfolding here. So just a little bit about Dad's upbringing. So growing up, Dad was very fortunate to be surrounded by lots of loving family. He had two older sisters, Carol, who's here today, and Angela, who actually were charged a lot of his baby years with bringing Dad up. So they actually looked after him when he was a young baby. And for extended periods of time, unfortunately, Dad's mum had some health issues, so she was in hospital for long periods. So when Dad was 4 years old, 3 years old, Karen and Angela used to look after him. And one time when Dad, because he wasn't permitted actually to go into hospital to see his mum, his sisters found a window adjacent to the bed where they could pass him through the window into the hospital. And so he could spend some time with his mum. And of course, Dad's first words to her were, "Do you know how many fireworks I've got?" That's what he wanted to say to his mum. But as many of you all know, actually, the Heathmans love a fire. So all of us love a fire. If you look over there, there is the biggest fire that Ollie won't light, because if he does, it might take down most of Dartmoor. So, but actually, nobody loved a fire more than Dad. So that's natural when he was 4 years old, probably, unsurprising. So Dad and the family, they frequented holidays, travelling down to Cornwall and the annual chapel outing, usually at Goodrington. But the highlight of the week for the Dad was obviously the Sunday cricket, and most importantly, the Sunday teas at the Sunday cricket. So as you'll learn through this, Dad loved playing sport and doing things, but it was either to go to the pub or to get some nice food. That was usually the motivation for some food, for some sport. So next door at Luthorn were John's cousins, Graham and Nicholas. So Nick and John were only a few months apart, so spent a lot of time together at Ilsington Primary. And in the village would often meet up with cousins Chris and Dave Binding, with Brian Roberts completing the group. So following on for this, he attended Ashburton Secondary School, where he continued the Heathram family tradition of being an excellent sportsman. In the early 60s, Angela and Carol had steadfast boyfriends, and so Angela had spent most of the time with her boyfriend at the time, Cyril, who is here somewhere today. Over here? Yeah. And Dad would actually join Carol and Alan for day trips out, often to places like Kent's Tavern. But of course, back in those days, the cars didn't have many seats, and Dad and Alan obviously always had nice sports cars, so there was never a seat for Dad, so he used to sit on the transmission in between the seats. It was usually either a Healy Frog Eye Sprint or a Triumph TR3, which of course today you need seat belts and all those sorts of things, but that back then you sat on a cushion in the transmission to travel down to Kent's. And Dad had an actual real keen interest in cars. He loved his cars, which was sparked actually at a very young age. So he would actually serve petrol from the family petrol station, which was down at Luthor. So down at the workshop where they lived and where he was born. On leaving school in 1971, he went to work with his father in the pottery, so down at Luthorn, about 5 meters from where he was born? 4 meters, 5 meters from where he was born. And so he worked hard as a youngster to make sure he was mobile. So when he was younger, he was able to get a motorbike. So his first motorbike, he travelled down to Plymouth with Alan to get his first motorbike, which was a BSA 175cc Bantham Super. Pretty nice motorbike. Of course, Ollie and I got 50cc runaround. So obviously Dad got a nice bike when he was 16 years old, and we got some 50cc Vespa scooter things. But obviously transport was important back then. So he had his motorbike for many years, and then at 17 he bought his first car, which was a green Mini. It was around this time, so many of you here today are from the football club, so around this time Sam Lehman and Bob Cornish decided they would start the new Ilsington Football Club. So Dad was many of the local lads, obviously Ilsington being a small place, as the pool was quite small in Ilsington for players. So they joined the South Devon League in 1970. It was actually during the final match of the first season in 1971 that Dad and a teammate, Roger Carpenter, went up to head the same ball and had a nasty clash of heads. So John was a bit dizzy, and Roger had a big egg-like shape on his head where they had like head-butted each other. So Alan and Carol took Dad and Roger down to Torbay A&E, where after about 4 hours, Roger was released and Dad was admitted overnight with a concussion. And when we were going through this with Alan and Carol, we were thinking, so that was back in 1971. He went to Torbay Hospital. The only other time he went was when he got his diagnosis. So Dad's love of cars continued, and he became quickly bored by the bog standard little green Mini. So he replaced it with a red Mini Cooper and had tons of fun driving around, which those of you that know Mini Coopers, it's quite a fun car to drive around. And then after that, he got bored with the red Mini Cooper, and he brought a Triumph TR4A soft top in red. So after a couple of years soft top motoring and impressing Mum and all the local girls in the village.
And Sally.
And Sally, yeah, maybe Sally. I don't think Sally's is actually Dad and Alan went down, there's continuing in this is Dad and Alan went down to buy cars. So I'm sure Alan was a good influence on Dad going down and buying all these cars. So he went back to a four-seater. So he drove down to Plymouth and brought a very smart Mark III Cortina, which there's actually some pictures of in the house. I think the red Mini is actually on some of the pictures as well in the house. And this was a Mark III Cortina that had black vinyl roof and vivid blue paintwork. So Dad was obviously extremely modest. And following on from the Cortina was a white Dolomite Sprint. So he enjoyed that for several years. And actually, what's more near to me, because this was all talking to Alan and Carol, learning about all these cars Dad had, which to me and Ollie was like, well, we only ever saw Ford pickup trucks. So when we were young, white Ford pickup trucks. So how many did you must have had? 5 or 6 Ford pickup trucks?
3.
3? Well, yeah, feels more than that.
4.
4.
He kept them a long time.
Yeah, which was inexplicable because the Ford pickup trucks just rust and break down. So after each one
He did
rusted
eventually.
and broke down, he would go out and buy a new Ford pickup truck. White. Always white, except now.
Yeah. That's the
We
Golf.
couldn't find a white one.
Couldn't find a white one. So the blue one, it's a bit smarter for golf, I expect.
Oh yes, that's it.
So Dad left school at 16 and started working with his dad, making and supplying pottery molds throughout Devon and Cornwall. And this was from their home down in Luthon Cross in Ilsington. Dad and Mum took over the business in 1980 and worked alongside Dad's dad, so Grandad Les, with 2 part-time employees, Jan Reed and Dickie Cornish, and a few years later employed Rob Cornish and Kev Lehman through the Youth Opportunity Scheme. So they continued to work for them for several years in the Youth Opportunity Scheme. Cheap part-time labour, yeah. And in the early 2000s, full-time, yeah.
Full-time labour.
Paid part-time, but yeah. So early in the 2000s, as with many businesses, Mum and Dad had to diversify. So the pottery mould started coming in from overseas, unfortunately. And so they started Just Molds, and they supplied hobby ceramic businesses in and around Devon and Cornwall, along with different clays and casting slips. And in his final few years, Dad supplied pottery molds, mostly supplying bisqueware to China Blue at Totnes for the Paint Your Own studios. Perhaps one of the most significant parts of Dad's life was when he was a teenager and he met Mum, who's right there in the front. Mum became and still is the matriarch of our family, so she's the rock, she's the glue that holds us all together, as many of you I'm sure are very, very aware. So Mum had moved to the village when Dad was 13 or 14, and they soon got caught up in the same social circles together, which is Mum's words, and I think I said social circles in Ilsington. How many social circles were there? One. The social circle in Ilsington. Yeah, exactly. And they eventually got together when Dad was around about 20, and after a few rocky patches, again, Mum's words, not mine, being on and off for a year or so, they finally got married on the 2nd of May in 1980, so actually right before Dad's 25th birthday. They had a small registry wedding and a reception at Rocktor, which is just down the road, which actually, again, there's the wedding alba on the snooker table in there if anyone wants to take a look at the pictures. So just before...
Dad with hair.
You see Dad with some hair, yeah. Everyone's been commenting on that. Thank you. So just before getting married, they bought their first house together down in Hennet. So this was a semi-detached cottage called the Old Bakery, next to the church, where they lived for 3.5 years. In preparation for starting a family together, they moved to Parklands in Bovey Tracy. That was in the July of 1983. And so that was right before having their first son together, Oliver. Later that year, 1983, you remember that? 1983. Dad loved Parklands, actually. And to be honest, talking to Mum about it is interesting because she said, well, if Dad had his way, we'd still be living at Parklands. That's where we would still be right now. And Dad actually loved it so much. And, I'll talk a little bit about kind of the lessons from Dad's life, but he actually decided at Parklands he was going to work so hard that he managed to pay off the mortgage within 8 years at Parklands, working full-time, evenings, weekends, and everything to pay off the mortgage in 8 years, which obviously now, completely impossible, unheard of, but still quite a feat back then. And when we were talking about it, Mum said the only reason last night they actually got the money to buy this place was because the bank manager was like, well, you just paid off your last mortgage in 8 years, so you can't afford this property, but I'll give you the money anyway. So later on, they had their second son together, that's me. A couple of years later, in the summer of 1985, despite Mum desperate to have a girl, which you think she kept that from me over the years, but no. I think there was even talk of swapping kids between Sally and Mum, so she could have Lena, a girl, and Sally wanted a boy, so you could have lived here, imagine that. So overall, Mum and Dad were married unbelievably for 46 years and together for over half a century at the end, which is quite incredible. So we all lived to Parklands together for around 10 years before moving up to here to Pincherford in 1993. We did have a little brief stopover over at Karen Allen's down in Broadcombe for a few months because the current tenants refused to move out, so we had to stay down, and Karen Allen had just moved into Broadcombe as well, so it was an interesting few months down there, and I celebrated actually my 8th birthday party was down in Broadcombe. And honestly, as Ollie said, I actually remember moving into Pincherford, moving in here, and we were actually talking about it a little bit last night. Mostly because actually Dad let us play two-a-side football in the living room, so as young kids we were like, this is the best house ever, because we get to play football and rugby in the living room, and badminton and table tennis, and nothing broke ever, obviously, don't worry about it, obviously, cricket. But when we moved in here, this place was a wreck, to be quite frank. The gardens were a mess, the house needed a lot of work, and actually, like I said, Dad was reluctant to move up to here. He wanted to stay in Parklands, and Mum said people were saying to her, like, well, Dad doesn't really like doing the garden in Parklands, which the garden was probably about this big. Let's move to Pincherford, where there's 19 acres of garden to look after. But actually, Dad did pick things up, and he spent the better part of 33 years with the help of Mum and of Ollie, completely transforming this property and the house and the gardens, and everything that you see here today. The pool's been done 2 or 3 times now. Saying last night, this whole garden was all, you can see like the rhododendron right at the top. This was all rhododendron all the way down here. And Dad spent every evening and weekend coming home from work and just clearing all of this out, which is quite incredible. So on to Dad's passions in life, and we'll start with football and the mighty Ilsington Villa. I was expecting a bit more than that. There we go. So Dad was actually, like I said, involved in the football club, which was a stone's throw from where he was born. Didn't go that far. He was actually involved for over 50 years at the end, and actually barely missed a training session. I think I don't know how many times he picked up the annual training trophy, but it was most years, which, all us youngsters, got a bit tired, didn't show up some nights, but Dad was always there. And so in addition to being the starting left back of the team, he was also the groundsman, as many as you know. So he would pop across, obviously he worked about 100 yards away, so he would pop over in the evenings and mow the pitch and spent most of his weekends actually dealing with the bottom corner. Those of you that remember when the pitch wasn't quite as nice as it is today, the whole left bottom corner was just a quagmire down there. So Dad would go down and start to unblock it and try and clear all the water out that bottom corner, which he's doing a service to the team, but he also played left back. So you can imagine getting the ball out that bottom corner. The wind drove down the field, down to the bottom corner. So clearing the ball out that bottom left corner wasn't easy. So I'm not sure it was purely for the team that he spent so much time down there clearing that out. Playing for Villa also gave Dad the chance to play against the Gambian national team. So we used to travel out to play the Scorpions in West Africa almost every year. We did every year for a few years in the end, and we stayed at the Kaloli Beach Club, which I'm sure many of you will remember with very fond memories. It's pretty easy to say Villa got soundly beaten by the Scorpions. They were a national side and quite good, and it was West Africa, so it's a little bit hotter than Ilsington. And I think someone said that actually they thought we were Aston Villa. So they were I think, expecting us to play well. I think we went down about 6 goals in the first 15-20 minutes when we played them, and then they eased up a little bit after that. And of course, we invited them back to Ilsington to play in the middle of winter, and they politely declined. And the other of Dad's sporting passions was, of course, golf. So he was a very, very, very keen golfer. And a lot of people ask me, well, Dad lived on Dartmoor, he must have loved walking, and that's why he loved golf. But it was Mark Twain that said, golf is a good walk spoiled. But this could not be further from the truth for Dad. Anything to make a walk actually meaningful, like hitting a ball around with a golf club or a pint at a pub at the end. That was the only way Mum could ever get Dad out for a walk, despite living in probably one of the nicest places in the world to go walking, given that Dartmoor is literally out the back gate. So Dad was introduced to golf in the 1990s when Bovey Driving Range first opened. So Dad would take me down actually to have lessons with the pro Chris Waters at the time. And then soon after that, we had graduated to playing at Stover Golf Club. So Mum's dad, Grandad Tony, used to play down at Stover. So I used to go down with Grandad Tony and play at Stover, which was obviously a very, very nice course compared to the pitch and putt at Bovey that it was back in the day. And then Dad actually eventually was a member at Stover for almost 25 years in the end. But before Dad started playing, he would walk around the course with me looking for golf balls. That was his favourite thing to do. And to be honest, I could go 18 holes without actually ever seeing him on the golf course. I would just walk around and see his head poking out of prickly bushes. So all the best golf balls were obviously places where people didn't want to go. So whatever the bush was, Dad would climb in it and come out with an armful of golf balls. And the other place that you get balls is you fish them out the Old Forth, so out the lake on the Old Forth hole, which he probably took in an average day 20-30 balls out of there, to be honest, out of that lake. And later on, put them all back in there. So I was always at pains to tell him. So Dad, and of course in true Dad fashion, and I'll get to the traits of Dad and what I remember about him, but was his generosity. So actually, when Dad found all the best golf balls on the course, he would come and give them to me as well. He wouldn't put them in his stash; he would put them in my bag for me. And so Dad actually started playing golf himself pretty quickly, so he enjoyed it. Got fed up of looking for golf balls. I think got fed up of Mum saying, "Why is my entire kitchen full of effing golf balls?" There was like 1,000 every drawer and cupboard you'd open in the kitchen, it was full of golf balls. So he had to get out there and start playing and start losing some of those golf balls. Yeah, it was not a problem. No, it was not a problem. But actually, he was very good at golf. Like I said, he was a true sportsman. So Dad was an amazing golfer. But he was very unconventional because he played right-handed and putted left-handed, which the only person I've still ever met that putted left-handed and plays right-handed, which is amazing. But actually, and I criticised him and said, well, if you play right-handed, you should putt left-handed. He said, well, I used to play cricket left-handed. I was like, well, we're not playing cricket, we're playing golf. But actually, to be fair, Dad was the best putter I've ever played with, and I played with some very good professional golfers, to be honest. And Dad would always, we played match play together, and Dad would usually have his ball outside of mine on the green, and probably 9 times out of 10 would drain the putt from outside my ball and leave me under pressure to hole a long putt to halve him. So yeah, can't really criticise the fact that he played left-handed with his putter. And actually, we decided in the end he loved golf so much, we buried him in all his golf cup with his left-handed putter and his 2 hole-in-one balls. So his 2 hole-in-one balls, I was like, Mum, where do you think they are? And I was like, don't worry, I think I know where they are. Stashed in his desk drawer in the top. So I opened it, look in the top dress drawer to find his golf balls, all of Mum's chocolates just stashed in the back. All of it. So Dad wasn't really much for travelling, but he did love going on summer vacations with us. So in the summer and the winter, and as kids, and you'll see some of the pictures in there, we used to go to Alcudia Pins down in Mallorca. Or we'd go on camping trips down to Brittany and the Vendée region of France with the Taps early on. And Dad was always up for going somewhere warm and sunny, but nothing to Dad compared to the annual ski trips to France. So initially we would go down to Valmerel in France. And there's most of the skiing crew's actually here today as well. We'd drive down in convoy from Ilsington with the Days, the Taps, the Mansfields and the Prins. And we'd make overnight stops at all the top French resorts like Campanile Motel. And of course the infamous Guinea Pig Hotel, which some of you will remember not so fondly. And actually we were very fortunate, just over a year ago now, for Dad's 70th birthday, we went out to North Carolina in the US, to Nags Head, and we had a beautiful vacation on the beach out there, and he loved it. So yeah, we were very, very, very fortunate. And so as we reflect today and in the coming weeks and months, I want to talk about some of the lessons that we can take away from Dad's life. So like I said, number 1 from Dad was be generous. So Dad was always willing to help people and help the community and spent his life giving people things they wanted or needed. So many of you here might have gotten golf clubs or golf balls or many things from Dad, and he wouldn't need to be asked. He would just go out and get buckets of balls and give them to whoever wanted them. He did have thousands, so. But in true Dad fashion, he never asked or expected anything in return from anyone. It was never a quid pro quo. He was generous without return. So that's what he loved doing, was giving. And so growing up, Dad would always go the extra mile for Ollie and I. He always wanted to provide for us. And so whether it was the new Arsenal kit that I wanted every year or a CD you probably didn't need from HMV, Dad would always be the one to go to. Unsurprised. Everyone's like, I'm sure Mum was the one to go to. Like, go to Dad and ask for something? 100%. 100% you'd get it. So. But it's really because he took so much pride in caring for people and caring for Ollie and I and caring for many of you here today. And we had many parties here growing up as well. And, it was obviously, we had a nice house and we had a pool and stuff. But one of the main reasons my friends used to love coming here is because they would come up and Dad would fire up the barbecue and bring out a cooler of beers for everyone. And so everyone thought this was a great place to have a party. So safe to say this was the place to go that all our friends came to all the time to hang out and have parties. Most people's parents told them they couldn't have parties, but Dad helped us out whenever we wanted one. So number 2 from Dad's life is be funny. So Dad is still one of the funniest and wittiest people I've ever known, and it didn't really matter if you're an old git or a little kid. He had an ability to make people laugh. And what I loved about Dad is that he always had an ability to say what everyone else was thinking, but didn't have the courage to say out loud. And he would often make jokes at other people's expenses under his breath that they couldn't hear, but obviously those that could, it was hilarious. And he was never afraid of the consequence of his humour either. He was never apologetic about his humour. And of all the wonderful cards and letters that we got from many of you that are here today, this is by far the most common thing that everyone mentioned, that Dad was the guy to sit next to at parties or at evening events, because you're always guaranteed a laugh during the night. And that was usually at someone else's expense, but if you're the one sitting next to him, it was a lot of fun. So the number 3 thing is work hard. So when Dad left school and started work at 16 in pottery with his dad, he spent countless days, including Saturday mornings, always worked Saturday mornings, lugging 25-kilo bags of plaster around the workshop. And for those that would see them driving past, they were delivered 1 ton at a time, and he would just spend all day lugging a ton of plaster around the workshop. It was quite incredible. And he did that for more than 50 years, working that hard, quite incredible. And like I said, it wasn't just over then. He would come home evenings and weekends, come back to Pincherford and spend his evenings working on Pincherford, whether it's mowing the lawn here or cutting down trees or doing logs to make sure Ollie and Dana and all of us had firewood for the evenings. It was quite incredible. And so just to summarize, so as you go about the rest of the celebration of life, and we really want you all here today to reflect on Dad's life, but in a positive way. You know, this is a celebration, and like I said, it's okay to laugh and it's okay to cry, but Dad would have wanted us all here laughing and crying at the same time, and sharing all the hundreds of stories that many of you have over the years of your time with Dad and what you spent. So that's what we ask you today. Like I said, really, really appreciate everyone for coming out. It means the world to us, and it would have meant the world to Dad as well. So thank you so much.
So next up, I'd just like to hand over the mic to a couple of Dad's really close friends and people that can really talk about his time, either on the football pitch or on the golf course. So I'll hand over to Tommy first, because just to say a few words about Dad and his time with Ilsington.
For context, Dad had 2 provisos. One was no religion, and the other was that Tommy would come and speak. Those are the 2 things. And
Cheers,
Nige.
John. Thank you. Following up on what Tom said, parties at this place, I've got, it's not a very vivid memory, but when I was 16 and I first joined the club, John put on a casino night here to raise money for the club, and I'm still having flashbacks now, but and I don't think I've touched a Vulcan Orange since, but it basically ended up, I think I was just getting a bit keen on the Vulcan Oranges, and then one of the players, Dave Linton, decided to pick me up by my feet and shake me about, and put me up the right way around, and I subsequently just hurled everywhere over Rachel's kitchen, and then probably I think my mum came and picked me up. So yeah, there's always, but no one cared. It was just like, well, apart from the fact I was probably underage drinking, but but it was just a rite of passage back then when you joined the club as a youngster, and people like, they sort of look after you in one respect, but teach you the sort of ways of the world in another. So there were good times I sort of had here. But anyway, for those who don't know me, sorry, I'm Tom. I'm chairman of Ilsington Villa Football Club, and I'd like to say a few words on behalf of the club and just tell you what John meant to us as a team and as a collection of people along the way. I should probably start by saying that John played for this club right from its formation back in 1970, but I think it's 71. I always had it at 71, but so yeah, he was there at the very beginning and continued playing into his 50s. So that's the sort of mid 2000s really. So it's a hell of an effort, an incredible achievement to be there from the sort of very formation. You know, John put down deep roots in this club, you know, and they started going down in 1971, and those roots that he formed and other players and all the other people who've been at the club for such a long time allow that club to sort of be stable as it is now, and you know, really give it a great stable and successful future from today really. And the club we've got there now with young players, won the top division a couple seasons ago. You know, all started back then, and John was extremely proud of all the lads there and what we've achieved. And you know, maybe we didn't have much success along the way, but that wasn't what it was all about. You know, John was all about the village and the village football team, and he did very, very well. You know, and all the young lads look up to him because he gave everything for this club. He was a true sort of role model and just fundamental to the club's very existence. And for John, it was never about the individual glory. You know, he was a fantastic player, and he could have gone to other clubs and won silverware and you know, enjoyed some individual success. But for him, it's just about the village and the village football team. And to play for that many years, you've truly got to love the game, especially as Tom said, when you're playing left back and you're down in the bottom corner and it's a January, you know, windy, wet day, and it was an absolute struggle to get out there. You know, it's sort of coughing corner down there, and he could have given it up. He could have packed it all in and just, you know, hung his boots up. But you know, to play for that many years, he must have truly enjoyed it. So you know, he was the type of player. He was gritty and determined, and he dug deep. Tenacious player, and just fierce in the tackle. And you know, if anyone else was, you know, he wouldn't just. It was cold and calculated with John. You know, he would wait a bit. You know, he wouldn't just do it straight away. He was 20 minutes later, or you know, and then we bang. You know, he hit them hard, and you get up, and he wouldn't make no fuss. He'd just turn around and walk away, wouldn't he? And that was John, really. So, you know, and I think undoubtedly John's proudest moment wearing an Ilsington shirt and being on the pitch would probably be with playing alongside these two boys. You know, and that's you know, a moment for a dad. I mean, I cherish those moments forever, you know, and maybe it'll happen one day, but I have to get my boots back on. But then we'll see. But I know John would have been, you know, he was so proud to play in the same team as his boys, and a real tribute to him and how his longevity of playing football, really. When I first was encouraged to join the club back in the mid-90s, not that long ago, it was full of strong characters, you know. Most of those that you'd probably end up locking horns with, you know, and you know, but John wasn't, you know, he was always calm, you know, and had a reassuring presence while everyone, you know, while everyone made me feel welcome. You know, John was the one that would always go out of his way to make sure I had a lift to the game or lift to training, or I had a beer after the game. You know, he'd always sort of look after me, and I'll always remember him for that. JJ was always sort of economic with his words, really. He wasn't, you know, he didn't talk for talking's sake all the time, and he had a tremendous wit and sharp intelligence that shone through. I remember once he wasn't being overly complimentary about a particular player. He was, and Sid tried to defend this player and said that this player, he gives 100%. And John's like, yeah, but 100% of shit is still shit. And he said it straight away, like he didn't even have to think about it. And when John finished playing, he carried on supporting the club faithfully as a committee member, cutting and marking the pitch, which we touched on already. And whenever I could, I'd help him out, and between us, we sort of forged a little team of getting the pitch done. And we had this like tormented love affair with all things grass cutting and mowers and everything up there, because nothing worked. We didn't have that nice mower that we've got up there now. We were just struggling around with these crappy Hater gang mowers. So we spent many hours up there and pumping tyres up, charging batteries, trying to get things going, easy start, all that sort of stuff. And you know, wasn't easy, but we just did it together. And if ever I was down there and I needed a bit of a hand, I'd give him a ring, and sure enough, he'd drop anything and come down and give you a hand in 5 minutes. And there was one particular piece of equipment that only me and John knew how to start, and it was just, you have to do this, then hit it with a hammer in the right place, and the way it went, and you just count your lucky stars. A job that should take half an hour is like 2 hours later, you're finally getting the pitch done. So he certainly knew how to sort of stick at things. That was John's big plus, really. He always supported the club after he finished playing, and whenever I was playing, there's always a few people you look out for, but for me, I'd always look out for John, when he's on the sidelines, because for all the years of support he's given me, and I knew when he was on the sidelines that I want to give everything to that club, because he'd given everything to that club, and to see people like that come in and supporting the team still when they're no longer playing meant a lot to me. So above all, John was a great mate to so many of us. Being at the club for so many years, you see lots of people come and go, but John never had a bad word to say about anybody, and he, well, actually, no, he did have a bad word to say. I got that completely wrong. I got that completely wrong. No one ever had a bad word to say about John. So. But his presence on the sidelines, and the committee, and the club in general, he'll be so sorely missed. And he leaves a huge hole to fill, really. And I don't think they'll ever make one like that again. Someone who's been at a club playing for 30 odd years, and if anyone can, I don't think we've got any stats on how many games he's played, but I can't imagine it ever being absurd. So everyone, please join me. I'd like to just raise a glass and to John. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Afternoon, everyone. Great to see you all. I gotta say, I was really touched when Rach, Ollie, and Tom asked me to say a few words on behalf of John, our golfing friend. And he has quite some stories to tell. So we heard from the guys that he was one competitive bugger. He really was. He loved his golf, and golf loved him, and everybody at Stover loved him too. So what can I tell you about some golfing facts about John? You've heard a couple of the stories, but a member at Stover for sort of best part of 25 years. He played a lot of golf. I was at the cricket with Oz a couple of weeks ago, and that was close. And we concluded that during the peak summer months, John would play 6 times a week, 6 days a week. Sometimes only 9 holes, just to hone his skills, such was his competitive instincts. And I'm still convinced that Rachel thought he was toiling away down at his workshop. But no, he was swinging his clubs at Stover like a true pro. The guys touched upon the fact that when he played a lot, he had an unofficial car park base at Stover. And when you come into the car park, top left-hand corner was always John's truck. And woe betide anybody that ever parked in that spot. When I became a director a couple of years ago, he would, with his little wry smile, poke me in the side and say, there's somebody parked in my spot, Nige. Move them on, will you? We've heard that he played right-handed tee to green and putted left-handed. I mean, how bizarre is that? And I remember several years ago, as we've been playing that long, said to John, well, how does that come about? And he went, talented golfers can do that, Nige. Tom touched on his holes in one, and he had 2. And one was on the 15th, they're both at Stover, one was on the 15th, many years ago. But his most recent hole in one was on the 12th of December, 2025, on the new 4th hole at Stover. We've got pictures of him dotted all over our WhatsApp group. And John was really proud of that. And I said to him, that's some feat, John. And again, with his little wry smile and a twinkle in his eyes, said, one's a fluke, Nige, 2's just genius. Now, us golfers, we have some golfing nemesis. And at Stover, John's nemesis was at 12 hole. Now, he would leave the 11th green and you would hear the mutterings. Hit it straight. Keep focused. And the tension would build around you. And then he would stand on the 12th tee. And it's quite an intimidating tee shot. For those of you who don't know it, it's a long funnel down a tree line. To the right, out of bounds and trees. To the left, the babbling brook and vegetation.